We are live from a wheat field in Dickinson County, Kansas. I am here with Justin Knopf, and can you tell us a little bit about your operation, Justin?
Sure, yep. My brother and I, Jeff, and myself are fifth generation farmers here in central Kansas. We farm with our dad, and we raise wheat, alfalfa hay, soybeans, grain sorghum, and corn in a dry land, no-till environment. We're about, we're on the downhill side of wheat harvest. We've been harvesting since late last week, middle of last week, so I think we'll wrap up by next Tuesday if we don't get any rains early next week.
So, Justin, you mentioned you're a no-till operation, and literally that means you don't till the soil, but tell us a little bit more about that and what it means and why you choose to do no-till.
Sure, you bet. So one thing that is kind of a foundational aspect to our family farm, one of the core values that our farm is built upon and shapes a lot of the way that we make decisions in our business and how we partner with the resources of the soil and water and the land, is stewardship. And so pretty foundational, it's become really apparent that foundational to having a resilient cropping system long term across time, we need a healthy soil to be able to do that. The older I get, the more kind of awestruck I am at how bountiful the heartland of our nation is, and how we can raise such bountiful wheat crops such as this. And a lot of that has to do with our soil that we have the opportunity to work with. And so soil I see as a natural resource that is not easily renewable, and it's something that if we don't protect, that will be a very significant problem for any future generations that wish to farm the land that we farm today. And even more so, a bigger problem for our society as a whole as we try to solve the challenge of producing more food with less resources for a growing population and less arable land, and using less arable land and less water.
So by not tilling the soil, what we see in front of us, this is an area that's already been harvested. So the wheat has already been cut, but there's still some straw left on the ground here, and you will choose to leave that there. What good does that do for the soil?
That's right. So right now, as we're harvesting this crop, we are already setting the stage for seeding the next crop that will go here by how we're distributing the residue and how much residue we have. We're harvesting the variety Monument here in this field, and it tends to be, if it has good water and good growing conditions, tend to be a little taller variety. And so you can see we've got quite a bit of straw on this wheat variety. And so we are working really hard at spreading that straw evenly out the back of the combine, because we will not move this residue or alter it in any way between now and when we run the air seeder through to seed our next crop going into this field. And so what that's going to do for our soil is protect it and insulate it. So when we have heavy rainfall events, those raindrops have a lot of kinetic energy, and when they come down and impact whatever they impact first, if they impact the soil first, it basically creates a small micro explosion in that little environment, and all that kinetic energy is transferred directly to the soil surface and then kind of blows apart the structure in that particular spot. So instead of having that happening, we want the raindrops, when we have heavy rains here and thunderstorms in central Kansas, we want the raindrops to hit the residue first and then gently fall down through the residue into the soil surface. So that reduces our runoff, which is really important, and also helps us more effectively capture that water and store it in the soil for when it's going to be needed for the next crop. The other thing that the residue will do for us is help protect against, will help reduce weed competition, weed growth by shading the soil and allowing less weeds to grow. Yeah, we still have weeds that we need to control, and that's important. We can even see a few coming through here in this wheat, in this bottom that had a little bit of water damage and maybe some freeze damage also, and it's allowing the weeds to come through in that thinner area. So you can already kind of see the effect of better residue has less weed pressure. Another significant benefit to leaving the residue in place for our soil is just insulating against temperature. The biology in the soil, the microbiology, all the little microscopic organisms that are working and carrying out the biological processes in our soil, the nutrient cycling, storing carbon, chewing through old residue and transforming it into nitrogen and nutrients that will become available to crops. All those microorganisms need a stable environment that is beneficial for their growth and activity. And so if we can kind of stabilize the soil temperature from somewhere around, keep it from getting above 85, 90 degrees during our hot part of the summer, that will allow that population to survive better and also maintain activity better throughout that hot part of the summer. And the residue will insulate our soil from that hot sun and keep our soil temperature about 10 degrees cooler versus if we would remove this residue by disking or burning.
So, not to interrupt, but I have a question from Mark Figley, wanting to know what model combine we are running.
Oh yeah, so we are running a Case IH 8230 today, and we have a 40-foot McDon header on here, Draper header. We switched to Draper headers about 4 or 5 years ago versus the regular auger type header, and I've been very pleased with the way that they perform in heavy wheat, like we're harvesting here, and soybeans, and we harvest our grain sorghum. Actually, everything that we harvest, we use this header with, except with the exception of corn, of course, which then we use a regular corn head. Yeah, good question.
So what crop was in this field before you planted wheat last fall?
This actually was wheat in 2016 as well. So our base rotation, it'll vary from farm to farm, but we will do sometimes 2 years of wheat residue, 2 years of wheat in a row of winter wheat, and then we will go to warm season grass, either grain sorghum or corn, and then we will follow that with a warm season broadleaf soybeans, which is a legume and also fixes nitrogen. But that soybean residue also will decompose very quickly, and so when we look at our rotation planning, we try to maintain a high amount of durable residue on the surface, going back to what we talked about of protecting the surface of the soil and building our soil versus allowing it to be depleted. And so after we do that soybean, we go right back into 2 years of winter wheat again, a very high residue, high carbon, stable residue to build our residue level back up right after that soybean.
So you're able to control your weeds and some of your moisture all just by leaving the residue on the field. Does that mean that you don't use any chemicals, or how do chemicals play into like weed control? Right.
Yeah, we do use herbicides. The residue helps create competition for weeds, but we absolutely certainly have weeds, and always will have weeds. You know, I think since people have been cultivating the land, weeds have been a challenge and always will be. And so, yeah, weeds will grow through, even though despite we have nice residue cover here, there'll be more sunlight hitting the ground, and once we get some rain, weeds will start to grow. And so we have a choice then of how we're going to control those weeds. We can either use a herbicide to control them, which allows us to leave the residue intact, or our other choice is to use tillage to control those weeds, which then we will lose our residue and then destroy the habitat and the soil structure that we've been working on building the last 15 to 20 years. So for me, in my opinion, and people will vary on their opinion on this, but my opinion for the environment that I'm working with and farming with, it's more ecologically beneficial to use a herbicide to control weeds than it is tillage from an environmental standpoint.
So how did you learn all of this about how to manage the soil? Did you go to college for this?
Sure. I think, I know very little in the grand scheme of things about managing soil and the complexities of the biological system that we get to work with on a daily basis. But yeah, I think, so I studied agronomy at K-State. Very proud to be an agronomy alum from the department there at Kansas State, and had a fantastic experience there. And that, I grew up, of course, with my dad farming, and we were then in the 1980s, a tillage-based farm, like most farms were here in Kansas, and we grew mostly wheat. And after harvest, we would plow and work the soil, and that's what we did. And then when I went to K-State and began learning more about some of the science behind how the soil works, and began to have a little glimpse into the biology, the complex amount of biology that is in the soil, and all the benefits that it brings us, it became more and more apparent to me that we need to develop and work and base our cropping system off of a system that allows the soil habitat to thrive and to build and to be in a better state across time as we move forward.
So you mentioned that you grew up farming with your dad and then your brother. Who all is out in this field that we're cutting right now?
Yeah, so right now we're running 2 combines. I'm running this one, obviously my brother and dad are running the trucks to the elevator. And then we have one of my brother's classmates, actually, Jared, has helped us off and on for the last, 20 years. He works full-time, actually, for the State Conservation Office in Salina, and has always loved wheat harvest and been a good friend of our family, and he comes out and runs the other combine during wheat harvest. And then in the grain cart here, we have Limber, and he's a full-time firefighter in the city of Salina for the Salina Fire Department, and in his off days comes out and helps us on the farm, and he's been running the grain cart with us this summer. Just a little bit ago, my 6-year-old son Andrew left. His mom came, and my wife Lindsay came and picked him up. He was out late last night and needed to get home a little bit more for a timely bedtime tonight. But he spends a lot of the days with me, and then my daughter Charlotte comes out quite a bit as well and rides along. Her favorite thing to do is to ride to the elevator with my dad. And then Jeff, my brother, has 2 sons also, and they come out a lot during harvest as well. I was thinking yesterday just what a magical time of year this is. Farming certainly has its challenges, and harvest has its challenges. It's really long days. We have breakdowns. We have weather concerns, and everyone's tired. And but yet, in the midst of all of that, we have some amazing time with our family to celebrate. It's really the whole thing. It's a miracle, I feel, and it's a series of a bunch of very small miracles, from how that seed was planted last fall into the soil that we've talked about, and how tools of creation like photosynthesis, sunlight, water, nutrients in the soil, biology in the soil have worked throughout the growing season, all seasons of the year through the growing season, and now we've got the pinnacle now here of harvest, and so it's a great time for our family to spend together in the fields and good workers, and it's a special time in the community because so many farmers are out and about and kind of watching out for each other and enjoying seeing each other make progress in the fields and watching the crews work. So it's...
I kind of got the impression Andrew wouldn't have minded staying out with Dad a little bit longer.
Andrew was not a happy boy when his mom got here to pick him up a little bit ago. Yeah.
So Mark is asking, are you using auto steer?
I am not, actually. This combine is equipped to have auto steer. It's about another $5,000 to add the controller for auto steer. A lot of our neighbors are using auto steer on their combines. We just have not chose to make that investment in our combining machinery yet because if you can get a shot, Marcia, of the hillside up here, a lot of our wheat fields have terraces in them. And so when we're harvesting, for example, on this field, as we move up the hill there, we will be harvesting along with those terraces and not making straight passes. So auto steer would be really, pretty handy here in this bottom where I'm making these straight passes back and forth. But we just feel for the investment, we've made that investment in our spraying equipment and our planting equipment, but have not yet in our harvesting equipment, just because we feel the efficiency from our operation isn't quite as much as we would gain from our planting and our spraying equipment.
So the other combine has gone around this hill, right?
Yep, he's running a 35-foot header, and so he typically will work ahead of me when we have a terrace field like this, and he'll open up the sides of the terraces because it's a little trickier getting this 40-foot header at the right depth and right height to efficiently open those terraces up. So he'll work ahead of me and do that, and then I'll cut out the middles of them with the larger head here.
Does anybody else have any questions for Justin? I'm going to talk a little bit about where your wheat is going to go from here.
Yeah. So as our wheat leaves the field here, we are hauling it to a terminal elevator at Salina, which is about a 20-mile drive from here one way. And it's a really large terminal elevator. Holly, I wish I could tell you how many bushels they store there, but I know that Chris, one of the managers there, was telling Dad that this week, 2 days this week, they took in 500 semi-loads of wheat each day. So it's a sizable facility, and so it'll be stored there until they move it out on rail. And actually a lot of the wheat from here, from the Salina area, goes out on rail down to Mexico. Some of it I think will go to the port down in Oklahoma, but most of it that is for export, goes to Central America and down to Mexico. So some of it is also used domestically. We do have ADM does have a flour mill in Salina, and then Schooler also will ship some domestic wheat to different parts of the U.S. But they say, Chris tells me a lot of their wheat goes down to Mexico. So when the issue about NAFTA came up here a couple of weeks ago about President Trump perhaps changing some of the arrangements and losing our trade opportunities that we have with Mexico, that would be a really significant concern of myself and other wheat farmers here in Kansas.
So Isaac Barnhart says he used to work for you.
Yeah, hi Isaac. How are you doing, buddy?
And then Suzanne Roadhouse would like to know how your yields are. Are your yields good this year?
Yeah, yields have been good this year. Our yields have been mostly in the kind of mid-60s to low 70s field averages. We were really concerned first weekend of May we had, out west they had a terrible snowstorm that did a lot of damage to western Kansas. About 2 days prior to that, we had a real significant freeze event here. We got down to about 28 degrees, and our wheat was heading out on the verge of flowering. So it didn't impact yields as much as I thought it might. But for instance, in this field that we're harvesting now, down in the lower lying areas of this field, it's about 10 to 15 bushel less than as we move up the hill, which points to freeze entry because those lower temperatures hung around longer down at that lower elevation.
I don't know if people could tell from the video, but we just went over those terraces he was talking about. So they're just like little hills kind of around that. What's the point of the terraces? Why are those there?
So this is a pretty steep hill that we're on, and so those terraces were put in through the Soil Conservation Service, probably, it's hard to say for sure, sometime probably the 1970s, I would guess, maybe earlier than that. And so they are there to slow down water movement going down the hill. So as water starts to move down the hill, they were engineered to stop that water instead of going straight down the hill. Then it will follow that terrace channel on a gentle, low-degree slope around the hill and then empty at the edge of the field into a waterway or an area that can then carry the water down out of the field instead of going straight down the hill and carrying soil with it. And back then, when all these terraces were put in, no-till farming wasn't really happening at that point in time, and so that has been yet another conservation practice that we've stacked on top of having these terraces in place for maintaining our soil in the field is no-till farming, and on top of the conservation practice of the terraces.
So we got a comment from Kevin Engel. He says, "Rock on, brother, from a former wheat and canola farmer from Saskatchewan, Canada. I so miss the harvest."
I've never been to Saskatchewan, and I really hope to get up there someday and see those big wheat fields. I always enjoy, a lot of really good engineering comes out of Canada, and they were one of the early adopters of no-till farming, and a good friend of mine from South Dakota, was a good best friend of mine I met at K-State, was always on a harvest crew that went up to Saskatchewan, and he would just tell me about the beauty of that country and the vast wheat fields, and so I always appreciate the opportunity to visit with Canadian friends.
So I think Mark must have joined us just a little bit later than some because he's asking if your field is tilled. You want to talk a little bit about no-till again?
Yeah, our field is not tilled. This field has been in continuous no-till for about 15 years, similar to most of all the fields that my family operates on, and so we make a pretty conscious effort to maintain and build our soil and our goal is to have it be in a better condition than what it is for the short time that we are farming it here. Our organic matters, which is a good, if I look at one measurement to kind of get a good feel for what soil health is, I look at organic matter, which is kind of like it says, a measure of the organic material in the soil, the amount of carbon in the soil. And we have gone from about an average of 2% when we started no-till farming to an average about 3 to 3.5% now across the last 15 years. And so what that means is we're building more organic material, more carbon, which is basically the energy source of the biological system, is carbon. Carbon is kind of the biological currency, if you will. As we trade dollars, biology in the soil and elsewhere trades carbon for energy. And so as we have more carbon in our soil, which we are sequestering out of the atmosphere, so those folks who are concerned about climate change or greenhouse gases, no-till farming is helping to offset those offset carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere by storing it in the soil.
So Mark is asking, drainage tile with your terraces?
No, we do not have any drainage tile. This part of Kansas, we would have to get more to the eastern part of the state where rainfall is a little higher to run across any drainage tile. The water, we actually want to keep as much water as we can. My goal is to capture every raindrop that falls in this field if I could. Obviously, I can't do that, but that's my goal. So any water that does leave the field flows out on the surface through the terrace channels. And we want that water, if it is leaving the field in those terrace channels, to exit the field as clean water. So that's why we want to maintain all this residue. So any soil that is in that water is kept in the field. Any fertilizer or anything other than water, we want the residue to act as a filter and keep that in place in the field as much as possible.
You can kind of see the back of this other combine, how they're spreading out that residue.
Yep. And so we want that to be our goal is to spread that residue across the entire width of the combine header evenly because we want an even, nice, uniform seed bed for the next crop that we plant here. And if we have big clumps of residue, it's going to be more difficult to consistently place that seed through that residue. And the temperature will be different if we have uneven distribution. There'll be moisture level differences. So we really want a nice, consistent spread of that residue. My hat's off, to all the folks who work in engineering. That's another thing I was thinking about last night. We get a lot of time to think, obviously, as we harvest and spend time in the combines. Is another thing that harvest represents to me is we have some of the foundational truths since creation, really, of how biology and soil and seeds and sunlight and water interact to produce things that sustain us as humans. So those are some things that have been basically unchanged as long as we've been growing things on Earth. So we have that happening at the same time as we have fantastic feats of engineering, these machines that are able to tell us yield and GPS location and be able to efficiently harvest many, many bushels of wheat per hour. It's kind of just a magical place where so many things come together at one time. Yeah, so we got cut off there, sorry. But anyways, we were talking about our productivity at harvest time with these machines. And, I so appreciated Isaac checking in and saying hi, because Isaac was a real solid young man and someone we were really fortunate to have the opportunity to work alongside. He has a great head on his shoulders and was a great helper working with us. And so that's equally important to these wonderful machines that have high capacity and high efficiency is the people. More important is the people actually that we have to help us. And so it means a lot to me that Isaac said hi, and we wish him the best as he continues to have success in the things that he is pursuing.
Well, before we tune out, I just wanted to let everybody know that Justin has just been awarded this week the Field to Market 2017 Farmer Spotlight Award from Field to Market. And so I guess, Justin, can you just tell us a little bit about that award? I know you weren't able to go in person to receive that because of harvest.
Right, yeah, they had the reception. It was presented at the Field to Market meeting in North Carolina on Tuesday, I believe. So we were right in the middle of harvest, so I was really sad that I couldn't attend that event in person. But what Field to Market is a group of folks across the supply chain that have come together to work on improving how do we, everyone wants to, rightfully so, is concerned about sustainability. And so sustainability is a word and something that means a lot of different things to different folks. So Field to Market is a group of folks across a wide breadth of the supply chain that came together and tried to come up and did come up with a set of metrics to kind of get at some of the sustainability measurements that we can actually do. And so they're doing, I really appreciate the work that the group has done and it continues to do in bringing together farmers and folks from, for example, National Association of Wheat Growers, folks from places like Walmart, Kroger, ADM, Cargill, fertilizer suppliers, seed suppliers, so a wide breadth across the supply chain to look at what are some of the metrics that are reasonable and scientifically based on how we can measure how we're improving our fertilizer use efficiency and fertilizer management, how well we're using water and fossil fuels, greenhouse gases, and we talked about storing greenhouse gases through no-till and putting carbon into the soil. So Field to Market has really been one of the leaders in the supply chain, a group of leaders in the supply chain looking at those metrics. And so this wheat field, in fact, ADM has had a program, a sustainability program, to where they are having us enter most of the management that we are doing to our wheat acres, and then they have a software program that is using the metrics that designed through Field to Market to get some sustainability measurements or metrics or scores, if you will, essentially, of how our farm and the acres of wheat that we harvest this year performed on sustainability scores on these metrics of Field to Market design. And so, yeah, it was a real honor to receive that, and it means a lot to myself and my family, since that's something that is kind of a benchmark or foundational to how we run our business, and I appreciate receiving it from an organization that is reputable and leading things such as Field to Market is.
So we get another comment from Randy. He says, "Awesome job, guys. Keep it moving." And Fred Mills, "Hi, I'm from King City, Ontario, Canada." So we got somebody else from
another Canadian. Hey, that's
here,
great.
So.
I've noticed, speaking of kind of the northern plains and up into Canada, I don't know if those guys could comment how they are on moisture, but I know the Dakotas up in spring wheat country, they've had a really dry start to the summer, and really a lot of concerns about some of the spring wheat acreage and how it's going to be affected up there.
It is a beautiful day. We're able to get some shots here of the sky. But as far as wheat cutting temperatures, it's only in the lower 80s today.
Lower 80s. We can't get much better than that. When the wheat harvest time, when the air temperature is not twice what the wheat yield is, and in fact, the closer that those two numbers come together, the happier the wheat farmer is.
With low 80s, we'd be happy to have low 80 yields, right?
Yeah, that's right. If we have 80-degree weather and 80 bushel wheat, we'll have happy wheat farmers.
So we've got a full bin. I don't know if you can see in that mirror right there, but you can see the bin, and it is full on this combine. So we're going to unload into the grain cart here. And then the grain cart will take that over to the semi and unload. And then once they get how many loads of the grain cart into the semi?
About 1.5.
About 1.5 loads, and then they take off to the elevator. So you've got, what, 3 semis here?
Yeah, we're running. Dad and Jeff are taking turns running 3 semis.
And how big is this total field?
This field is a quarter section, so 160 acres. There's a few waterways out of it that aren't crops, so the total crop acres in this field is 155.
It's a pretty good, big open area. Of
nice sized field.
With a nice little hill.
Beautiful view from the top.
Yeah, it is. All right, well, we're going to things up here with Justin. But if you guys continue to watch and have questions, be sure to ask them and we will find an answer for you. So thank you all for joining us. Sorry we had a few little connection problems, but really appreciate you being on here. We will be live again next week. Thank you. Thanks, Mark.